All right, so being 7:09, I call to order the Lancaster Zoning Board of Appeals.
Are you recording?
Yeah, we're recording.
Are we recording?
Yep, everything's.
Yep, it did say we were recording.
All right, so let me go to the agenda here. My apologies for technical difficulties. Yeah. So roll call vote, Gene Rich,
Here.
Frank Sullivan. Here. Dennis Hubbard.
Here.
Eric Jacobowitz.
Here,
Rob Alex here. All right, so the first item on the agenda is to approve the meeting minutes of 1:25:24.
I'd ask that we table these and let me review with the clerk and be in the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. We'll table meeting minutes for the next meeting. Next item on the agenda is for Board of Appeals member application. So Michael Berry has reached out to the select board and the town administrator, showing interest in sitting on the board. I had a discussion with Michael. I asked that he be at the meeting, just introduce yourself. You know, why you're looking at the position, your background, et cetera, Mike, if you want to come up and that way if the board has any questions, we can do that. And appreciate you stepping up and offering to help, so.
I guess for start for corrections, Bray, not Barry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Michael
Yeah,
Berry.
I'm saying,
Already
who's
swapped.
Michael Berry?
Sorry.
Okay.
So, my name is Michael Bray. I've been a resident in Lancaster now for about 9 years or so. I think like most people, didn't start paying too much attention to a lot of the government stuff until the last couple of years. And one of the things I've kind of noticed is a general lack of, I guess, volunteers. It's tough to get a lot of people to come into any of these boards really. So this seemed like a good opportunity to get involved, and it kind of fits my available time. I'm an engineer, so it's kind of a fitting position for me. I'm generally pretty analytical about everything, so it seemed like a good place where I could assist.
Excellent. Thank you for stepping up.
Yeah, thanks so much.
No problem.
Any questions on the board from Michael or?
Well, I know Mike, and I think Mike would do a great job. Smart, intelligent, common sense, and I think he'd be a great asset to us.
EJ, anything on your end? You're on mute.
welcome aboard, hopefully.
Thank you. Thanks, I didn't think it'd take very long, but appreciate you stepping off and now the next step, the select board, making sure, so something that.
Do we make a recommendation to the select board or do they leave that them to?
When I talked to Kate, we discussed as a board, there was one feeling one way or another, I know in the past, myself included, was okay, this person, that person, we have a single person that's willing to do it, so.
Correct.
Do we need a motion to recommend him, or?
We can, if that makes the most sense.
I'll make a motion that we recommend Michael Bray to join our great Board of Appeals as a new member.
I'll second.
All right.
So motion by Gene, second by Dennis, a roll call vote, Gene Rich,
Yes.
Frank Sullivan,
Yes.
Dennis Hubbard,
Yes.
Eric Jacobowitz,
Yes,
and Rob Alex, yes, so we'll make the recommendation, I'll reach out and the TA and the chair of the select board and go from there. Awesome, thanks so much, I appreciate it.
Good luck. I have some resources if you wanna reach out, just new commission members for various boards before we meet and then we get to along with the issue. And some other documents you can.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so next item on the agenda is the public hearing for 72 Narrow Lane, request for variance, so I'll read that into the record. The Lancaster Board of Appeals will hold a public hearing via Zoom and in the Natural Way Meeting Room, Lancaster Town Hall, second floor, Prescott Building, 701 Main Street, Lancaster, Mass, on Thursday, February 22nd, 2024 at 7 p.m. to hear and act upon the following matter. A petition by Lisa Jo Dyer petitioner of 72 Narrow Lane, property owner, for the following: a request for variance relief pursuant to the town of Lancaster's zoning bylaws, Article 4, 2020-11C, Section 2, to allow installing an above-ground pool in a side setback where no rear yard is available. The proposed site is located 72 Narrow Lane, is in a residential district, and is identified on the assessor's map 37 as parcel 8. A copy of the petition and accompanying documents are on file at the Prescott Building Community Development and Planning Office, 701 Main Street, Lancaster, Mass. The office can be reached at 978-365-3326, extension 1074, Robert Alex, Chair, Lancaster Board of Appeals. Do we have somebody from the applicant? Perfect. Do you want to go up, name, address, and all that?
My wife takes a job, I'm doing a thing, I was like, representing us.
So you just kind of want to walk us through the project, which you're, reason you're seeking the variance.
Can we just get your name again?
Daniel King,
Daniel King,
Lisa
thank
Joe
you.
Fussy. So we, wanted to get a pool and we went to the deposit down in the pool. And in doing so, we found out that Lancaster has a, I guess, called a bylaw or whatever, that can all pools in the backyard. So I contacted, the town hall here and whatnot, and I had Mike Silver come up and take a look at the yard, and he came over to my house and I showed him the proposed area where I want to put the pool, because we don't have a backyard, we really have only a side yard, which is already fully enclosed with a nice brand new white vinyl fence. Will not be seen from any abutters, and I showed him exactly where we want to place the pool. It meets all setbacks. He said, yeah, I don't see a problem here. He says, I wouldn't be against you putting a pool here. And then we came and Brian Keating worked with us. I think his last name is Keating, to help fill out all the various paperwork and whatnot, and showed him all the setbacks and the plan that we had going forward, and told him what Mike said. He said, yeah, I don't see a problem here either. And he says, and you don't have a backyard. He said, I don't see why it would be an issue with you putting it there. And he says, you do plan on, having that fully enclosed, a nice white, vinyl fence, and it clearly meets all setbacks by a mile. And, so I just think it would be reasonable that we could be allowed to have that there, since we don't have a backyard. It's our only option. We're very clean people. We keep up our yard. We're quiet people. And, we're just hoping that we're gonna be allowed to do that, because, recently in the last few years, I've become legally blind in my right eye and pretty close to my left eye, and my wife does all the driving now. So we don't go as many places as we used to, like to the beach or to anything. So this would really become a place where now we're gonna be spending a lot of time at home. It's one of the reasons why we really want to pool also, so we can enjoy our backyard a little bit more, since we're gonna be more homebound than we used to be.
Thank you. Still open up, I guess, to the public for any questions, any comments? Okay, seeing none in the room, any online?
Is there anybody
There's
online?
nobody in there.
Yeah, there's somebody
Okay.
better than that.
There was a few people on here before, but they said that the link they got was the wrong one.
So
It says you've got four
I said-
participants, so who are the four participants?
So Seth Gilchrist is now.
So there's people in the waiting room that need to be admitted.
Yeah, we have to put the wow on the top. Welcome to the party.
Okay. Any people, any citizens online regarding 72 Narrow Lane? Yeah, not hearing anything online, I'll open it up to the board for discussion.
I just pulled it up,
Yeah,
with a Google search and
I went and looked at it, I mean.
it's gonna be right in your fenced in
It's
area.
very
next to
fitting,
it.
I guess I'm having a hard time looking at the bylaw and understanding where it says they can't have a swimming pool in a side yard.
It doesn't really,
I feel like.
Is it because it's silent to a side
Well,
yard?
I think the bylaw said that swimming pools need to be in a rear yard.
In a rear yard.
Yes, it's accessory structures
Yeah,
have to be in the rear yard. The side yards can be used by parking or by permanent accessory outdoor storage, provided that the parking or storage is closer than 50 feet.
But that's for zones other than residential,
Right.
so I guess
Sure.
that's where I'm not. Because section B talks about side and rear yard setbacks and in residential, which would be other districts, as long as it's not less than 20 feet. It doesn't say you can't do something, so
Is it because of the structure within structures have accessory structures have to be in the rear yard?
where the side and rear yard setbacks above are 20 feet and it's silent to structures. Or is that why, Brian, you're just saying,
yes, that was a recommendation from Mike Silver and I when we talked about this.
okay,
It's an accessory structure. Looks like a garage or a shed or anything else needs to be in a rear yard.
that fence considered an accessory structure.
okay. I mean, I don't have a problem with it.
At the end of the day, it's the harming us approving the variance,
Yeah,
doesn't.
it's,
Summer.
okay.
Plus they got it screened, so they meet
Yeah.
the screening, so it's like, yeah.
Everything fits.
Everything fits.
So
Setback.
I'll make a motion, we close the hearing,
Yeah,
if you'd like.
So move.
okay. Motion to close the hearing by Gene Rich, second by Frank Sullivan. Please roll call vote that. Yeah, we do, right?
Yeah.
And all five of us are voting.
Yes, and sorry, thank you. Yeah, voting members, Gene Rich, Frank Sullivan, Dennis Hubbard, Eric Jacobalis, Rob Alex. So motion to close the hearing, seconded, roll call vote, Gene Rich.
Yes,
Frank Sullivan.
Yes.
Dennis Hubbard. Eric Jacobalis,
Yes.
Rob Alex, yes. All right, so
I'll make a motion that we approve the variance for 72 Narrow Lane to allow a above-ground swimming pool in the side yard. Variance under 220-11.C2 of the zoning bylaws.
I'll second that.
Sullivan, Craig. Any comments? Question? No? All right, so we'll go to roll call vote. Gene Rich,
Yes.
Frank Sullivan.
Yes.
Dennis Hubbard.
Yes.
Eric Jacobalis.
Yes.
Rob Alex, yes. So you're all set. It has been approved. We'll file it with the town clerk within 14 days. At that point, there's a 20-day appeal period, at which point you'll get notified, and then you can file it with the registry of deeds. So you'll be all set. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Next item on the agenda is the continued hearing from January 25th for 13 Neck Road. Good turn. Turning out.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're continuing from our last hearing, and I just wanted to provide the board with a brief update before we get into the technical peer review, because I see that you have peer reviewers here, and we can have that discussion if that so pleases the board. Since our last hearing, we met with the sewer commission. That's an ongoing conversation. I guess my understanding, and I don't quote me on this, but they're sort of reformulating how the sewer credits are going to be available to the town. So that's an ongoing conversation, and we're just waiting sort of an update from the sewer commission. I asked for an update from Christine a few days ago, and she said that there was no update. So we're going to continue to talk with them, and that will be a continuing conversation. We've agreed about peer review. obviously peer review has issued a peer review report, but we have also agreed on the scope of the traffic report. And we have agreed with, with your town planner about who should be the traffic report peer reviewer and the scope of the traffic review. And we've retained our own traffic engineer who's working on a report as we speak. So hopefully in a future meeting, we can have a good conversation about traffic. In response to some of the concerns from the neighbors in the last meeting, we updated our architectural plans. People wanted to see different views and see updates that showed the correct setbacks and show where the heights are. So we submitted updated architectural plans for the board's review. We've also updated the waiver list. There were some comments from the public that they wanted to see more specifics about what was being requested as far as waivers go. I will just say that the waiver list is a living, breathing document, and there may be future revisions to that waiver list to make it more perfect before we get to the close of the public hearing. And with that, there was a peer review report, and we responded to that peer review just about a day ago. So I don't suspect that the board or the peer review has had an opportunity to look at our responses, but we're happy to talk about that tonight. So it's in the board's discretion of whether you would like us to go first and talk about our reaction to the peer review, or you'd like the peer reviewer to go over her comments related to stormwater and civil.
I think you probably, if we have healing war.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, makes more sense to me.
Hello, my name is Bethany Ordon. I've worked with Haley Ward, and I conducted the peer review for the stormwater and bylaws, specifically the waivers. And I am actually wondering if the waiver list that I was looking at was the most updated waiver list. Because it was from the application in, I think it was dated October.
Yeah, so it's been updated, and we've also reviewed our comments and making sure that those issues have been cleared up as well.
We should, I think we should have a report, and then the waiver list came shortly there.
Yeah.
You may, what you
Not your
reviewed,
fault. It was-
what you reviewed was current at the time you reviewed it. And
That's
something has
accurate,
changed.
yes.
And we got a new waiver
And
list.
you,
It just
you
came
got the email today with the
Oh.
Dropbox link.
Yes, they did.
Okay, so
Yep.
that's the updated waiver list there in the.
Oh, okay.
In the response to your review.
Yep. All right. I did get a chance to look at that. I didn't really go through it in depth yet. The meat of my letter, for the peer review is, the stormwater report. I asked for some additional information, and I asked for some corrections to their calculations. In particular, there were some ambiguous information that was included in the retainage and infiltration area. So I asked them to provide some more details on that. I also requested that they update their calculations to account for the water recharge for 1 inch of rainfall across all of the impervious surfaces on the site. They had only included calculations for the areas in their original calculations. There were a few elevations that I asked to be updated, or at least matching between the plans and the stormwater calculations. I also had comments about where they're tying into the municipal drainage system. They were tying into the closest structure, which is the catch basin. It should really be tying into the drain manhole that's across the street on Centerbridge Road. But that's my opinion. I think that the DPW should really be approving where they tie in. I had some other comments about, where they're putting the porous pavement, whether they would reconsider putting it under the driving area in the parking lot instead of the parking area. Just to kind of take into account if that's the most time where those cars are sitting, then if they're leaking any fluids, it's gonna go into that retainage area much faster. I also suggested that the town request that the sidewalks are relocated off of the private property and that the sidewalks would also be improved in that area. I also went through their waiver list, and I had a few comments on waivers that they had requested. I did go through their response letter, and many of the waivers that I had questioned, they decided to withdraw their waiver request. I don't know if you want me to go through each one of those.
It's probably the ones that are still pertinent, right? Makes the most sense.
They did add a fence to the plan, which I think is significant, a fence along the rear and the side of the property. Let's see. The plan is with the fire department to approve access for emergency vehicles. It looks like it usually would be access from parking alongside of Neck Road or Sunbridge Road, but there's no access to that interior unit from the side of the road, so they would have to be able to get those trucks into the parking area. It looks like it could be tight, but that's for the fire chief to comment on. Curb cuts, I think that additional comments on that will come from the traffic review. I think the signs, they had asked for a sign waiver, but the only sign that's gonna be on the site, I think, is attached to the building, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, yes.
The lighting plan, they had asked for a waiver from the lighting plan. And then they withdraw it. They say that they're not providing pole mounted lighting in the parking area, but either way, I think that the lighting plan should be looked at, even if it's building mounted, because they're not very far from the abutters there. And even if there is a fence, I think that light pollution from developing that parcel that densely could be very irritating to the neighborhood. Another thing that I had noticed, actually, when I was going through it today on the landscaping plan, I didn't see the updated architectural renderings, but I noticed that, a large piece of the landscaping that they're showing in those renderings is actually gonna be a clear area that's within the town right of way along Neck Road. See. They provided an erosion and sedimentation control plan, which I had suggested be included. But that was part of the response package today. And they also have requested waivers from stormwater rules and regulations and the wetlands rules and regulations. And my primary comment on that is whether or not the ZBA actually has the authority to provide those waivers. If it's not under chapter 220. It's in different sections of the bylaw. That's not really a question that I can answer for you. I think you'd have to ask your counsel about that.
Correct me if I'm wrong, because of the being at 40B, everything essentially rolls through the ZBA.
Okay.
We become the permitting authority for every board across, hence comprehensive permit, so.
Okay.
That's correct, so long as it's a local requirement.
Yeah.
So the Board of Health retained its jurisdiction under Title V. The Conservation Commission retained its jurisdiction under the Wetland Protection Act. But with respect to stormwater rules and regulations, which are locally adopted, and local wetlands bylaw, those are within the purview of the ZBA, only for the purposes of a 40B.
Thank you.
Sure.
And I also just have some additional comments about how they aren't within the wetland buffer zones, but in particular, the catch basin that is adjacent to the property that they're going to be discharging into, that drains to the Nashua River, not too far away. So I am expecting to see some kind of filtration devices for the construction period at least. in their updated sediment and erosion control plan, but I have not had an opportunity to review that very carefully because I just received it this afternoon.
Thank you. Any questions?
Right now.
Who your name again, sorry?
Bethany.
Was Adam provided with a alien ward report and response?
So I have the initial letter from Alien Ward. What I don't have, it just sounds like maybe I wasn't copied, or maybe I missed it, or maybe it went to my junk folder. Is the updated information, maybe the Dropbox that had the back and forth between Alien Ward and the applicants consultant in the past few days. So I've got a physical copy now, and I'll review whatever was submitted.
Yeah, 'cause I was gonna say, I have
And
two.
go forward, I'll ensure your, Steve consultant is CC'd on my emails to Brian, so he gets everything as.
Any questions about him at this point?
Not right now.
Yeah, I'm pretty thorough, so, okay,
Great, thanks.
thank you.
And if, Mr. Chairman, if you'd like to introduce Russell from Hancock Associates to go through that peer review and his responses to the peer review.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Russ Tedford, or Hancock Associates, project civil engineer. So yes, we had a chance to review the peer review letter, and we're generally, we're good with her comments. We've updated our stormwater reporting plan, to jive with elevations that she pointed out, as well as increased, our recharge volumes per the 1 inch, water quality, that she pointed out. For now, it incorporates all of the impervious on site and just the paved impervious. So we are providing more water quality treatment as well as recharge in the area. And then for the connection into the catch basin at the corner of Neck Road and Center Bridge Road, we'll definitely work with DPW and get their input on how they want us to tie in. I do agree that drain manhole is probably the preferred method for them. I think from our standpoint, we were just trying to limit disturbance and trenching within that road. As a grading and drainage utility plan shows, our sewer and water connections are probably about 20 to 30 feet away from that intersection, where the catch basins and manholes are. But we'll coordinate with them going forward to see what they would prefer. Also brought up was the porous pavement cell being within the parking area. That is a good point. It's just how we typically design these things. From our standpoint, we feel like it's easier to cross pitch the road from the edge of the drive aisle down towards the parking stalls. And we already are proposing curb in that area. So we're not gonna get any spillage over, overland, so to speak, if we were to do it that way. We can review it and see what works best. What we feel is if, in the event of an oil leak, the porous pavement does provide, the required treatment. Because it's not just the pavement per se, it's got 3 layers to it. It's got the porous pavement, which is 4 inches, and then it's got a crushed stone layer, a filter layer, and as well as a pea stone layer before we get into our reservoir pores where our recharge and infiltration is happening. We can certainly look through that and evaluate. As mentioned too, we rescinded some of these waivers here, corner clearance, building height, being that, for the curb cuts, I'll just mention, Chris alluded that we now have a traffic consultant on board. He looked at, turn radiuses for, Lancaster ladder truck as well as, kind of like a box truck. And, he suggested and recommended 15-foot curb returns which are reflected in our revised site plan for, both the entrances. And for lighting. We could definitely get an example of what a building mounted light will look like. We hear the concerns that we don't want light pollution on the abutting properties. So we can get something rather low intensity, and present it to the board as to prove such that, light from the buildings won't, encroach upon the abutters at the property line, because I think right now it's laid out that the buildings along the two side property lines are around 50 feet. Setback from those property lines, so I think we can find something that's not intrusive, to make everyone happy here.
We have a pretty extensive zoning bylaw on lighting, so I recommend you look at it and try to meet the dark sky.
Yeah, dark skies compliant.
Would be possible to see what that lighting plan would look like on the architectural drawing to see.
Yeah, I think, we can look at types of lighting and kind of prepare a sketch to show maybe the intensity.
And some kind of illumination area or something.
And I think that's it. I think I just want to touch upon that, we have forwarded our site plan to the fire chief, and we're kind of awaiting his comments, as well as additional input for the track that we have.
So if I could, Mr. Chair, for you, so in your report, you mentioned Mike Hanson, the fire chief, he's on leave right now. We have Seth, Gilchrist online, who will be acting. Fire chief, and I forwarded him the new materials today, so he may have comments. So Seth, are you?
Good evening.
Mhm.
I'm Lieutenant Gilchrist on Lancaster Fire. I've been in contact with Brian in reviewing these plans. When you were talking about the clearance for the driveway area and the curvature, it looks good from my end. We should have plenty of swing. Our ladder truck is going to be our biggest and longest truck coming into here. I'm looking right now with the driveway area of the pavement, and looking like 20 feet from the curb to the parking spaces, an additional 18 feet. That's going to give us plenty of room to be able to go in there, set up, do what we have to do, and get additional trucks around, plus with 2 entrances and exits right there. There's also a fire hydrant on kind of the corner-ish of Center Bridge and Neck, which is we like to see as well. So I don't see a problem with the entrance and the driving area on the property. So that's what I got from looking.
And if I could just add to, part of the traffic consultant's report is going to include a sweat path analysis, which shows the ladder truck making movements into both entrances. So that'll be coming up in our next revised materials.
Seth, do you have any concern in terms of access for that middle unit? Be able to access that effectively?
The middle unit as the one closest to the parking area, the 2-family, the 2-unit.
Yeah. If you don't have an answer right now, that can be understood. We just got some of the stuff, but
Accessing wise, no. If we're talking about ladder truck wise, no, there won't be an issue on any of these units, whether we're parked on Center Bridge or Neck Road. We thankfully have a ladder truck with 109 feet of ladder reach. So if we have to park on the outside of the property or in the pavement of the parking area as well, so we will be able to reach, as long as lay a supply line from the fire hydrant into the property and then use our attack lines or hose lines, we will have plenty of reach. The only thing I'm not seeing on these plans is the total distance of like the property itself. So from the middle of all 3 units all the way across down the proposed concrete sidewalk.
What were the distances you were looking for again?
Just looking for from the middle, if it in here, over to here, over to here. You can kind of do it from the dimensions of that building.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's where I was going off of dimension building lines. I was just looking for a quick reference of the stretch of it, but from just kind of a quick reference, the 7 units is roughly 95 feet, which is, if that takes up most of the property, we have plenty of line to be able to stretch to where we need to go to.
Yeah, I'm sorry, so you're looking for the midpoint distance between, if you were to stage in between the two unit dwellings?
Yes.
Yeah, so each parking space being, 9 feet, wide, I think from the midpoint would be around 40 feet. If you were to stage directly in the middle of those two buildings.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to highlight that the new plans have fencing, and this isn't a 100-unit project, so every expense matters. We'd like to get some feedback that the board is happy with the addition of the fencing, and that you think that that is a worthwhile expense for us. I'm just highlighting it and underlining that that was an addition to the plans, and I want to make sure that that is something that the board appreciates and is happy with.
Line fencing, I'm
Right here. Like underneath the- See, they've got the tree and the fencing.
Sheet pile.
I'm looking at snow, so that's all snow storage.
Yeah.
So that's just. We look at. So page 3 of your plan shows. Snow storage along the Schmidt property, along the Clothier property, that's all snow storage, as well as in the corner. Then your plan 5 shows your snow storage, is all your trees, and now you're saying that's your fence too?
Yeah, so the fence will be along the property line. I think, in terms of providing snow storage as well as, kind of hear your comments that it's a rather small site. If we can provide screening from a fence rather than having trees and then keep, and rather not take up snow storage with saplings and, potentially impacting their growth, I think that's something that we'd be amenable to.
So you're showing trees, but you'd rather not have the trees and just have the fence?
I think it would be, yes, I think that would, please the board where, we're just thinking, that was a comment coming from last hearing was where is the snow gonna go? And I think that's obviously where it makes sense. And in terms of providing the maximum amount of snow capacity, definitely makes sense, for trees not to be there.
So there'd be no trees, even though you're showing all the trees along the fence?
Well,
And in all the snow storage, you're saying you don't want any trees, you just want the fence and the snow up against the fence?
Obviously, we will definitely work with the board in terms of what the final landscape.
Yeah, I'm
looks like.
trying to understand.
Yeah,
the
I'm not
plan.
saying that we wanna, eliminate all the trees as shown here, but
Mhm.
we're showing a lot of plantings there.
Mhm.
And if, the addition of the fence and then repealing some of the trees to, provide the maximum stove storage possible, I think that's a kind of compromise in the middle.
I mean, we could provide trees and fence, but then there's less area for snow storage.
Can you tell me what the depth of that snow storage area is?
Maybe 6 feet.
6 feet?
Where you get it? Where do you, can you see that?
I can't see.
I can't see it either, I'm just.
Where are you saying it?
Yeah, so on the eastern property line, land of now formerly Schmidt, it's 8 feet. And then on the
8
Poppy
feet, yeah.
side,
8
it's
feet.
6
Yeah, okay.
Alright,
Oh, that's 8, okay.
so 8 feet along
across the north to the Schmidt.
Yeah, the Schmidt
Okay.
and 6 feet on
and
the
6
other.
feet on the other side?
Yeah, we need bigger print.
Yeah, I'm old. I can't see, I'm sorry.
I don't have any glasses yet, so I can't read it.
I have my glasses.
And your current plan for the driveway is bi-directional? Yes, it's two-way traffic.
The way winter's going, we're not gonna have any snow here anymore.
Don't jinx us, don't. Please.
I like the tree, I like having the tree there.
Yeah. But 6 feet ain't a big area.
Right, there's not a big area for snow, 8 feet.
With the headlights, traffic goes both directions, I like that fence.
Yeah.
I do like the fence in there, I like a few
It's gonna do
trees.
A lot more to break up the car traffic.
Now, when you're saying traffic in both directions, so it can come in Neck Road and go out Center Bridge and come in Center Bridge and go out Neck is what you're saying?
Yes.
I thought that corner was all taken for snow storage.
That's a good for the light.
And that's in the inner island where they have the trees could also do some storage, but they want ourselves to do. But I think with traffic going in both directions, having a fence in both directions is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, but is this telling me this is all grass? So that you, does it say grass?
Yeah.
But you're saying traffic is driving up and flowing over the grass? Corner,
Oh, yeah.
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 yeah, so,
That's an old, like, probably the old.
That might have been an old one.
Yeah.
that's the new one you gave me. Yeah,
I think,
I don't have that.
that's the one that says cap code.
Oh, that's the existing.
Oh, that's the.
That's existing.
Yeah.
That's existing.
Oh.
Done by a different engineering group.
Okay.
That's the way it looked with the other house there.
Oh,
She did the other.
Oh, yeah, okay.
What's his name, so.
Eddie,
Eddie Sanders' house, you know. This was the original one with just the snow, there was no trees, no fence.
So, yeah, and then they're showing the
Then they're
trees
showing the
in
trees
the
and fence.
fence. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of the fence, it'd be nice to still have some sort of plantings,
Mhm.
Be nice to have something,
something there.
just to, instead of making a big.
And without having to the detriment of the stone store, which is gonna be.
Can you just like eliminate some trees? and
That's what I mean.
Keep some there, but not a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The fence is good and a few trees.
Are you married to the placement of these buildings? Are you,
Yeah, so, yeah,
You are.
we think this is a great design.
you do? Adam, is that something that this board can recommend changing the locations, or do we have to go with what they're married to?
So the board can always engage in a dialogue with an applicant and can make recommendations to an applicant. Ultimately, the applicant proposes what the applicant proposes. It's really no different under chapter 40B than it would be if it were a special permit application or an application to the planning board for a site plan review. The applicant presents what it presents, the board provides feedback. That feedback may be in the form of recommendations that things change. Some applicants will engage in a dialogue, will go through different iterations of the plan. Others will be unwilling to do that. Others will tell you that they can't do it because of the site constraints or other limitations. Obviously, if you're talking about relocating buildings, there's a domino effect because if they design a stormwater management system, that's going to be affected by the relocation of buildings. It's going to affect the layout of internal roadways and parking spaces and whatnot. So it can be a big ask by a board, but certainly you can make the request. The applicant, if he or she or it insists upon proceeding with the plans that have been presented, that's its choice. And then you act accordingly. If you're dissatisfied with it, you think you have a basis for denial, on that ground or others, then you can act accordingly. But there was a lot of feedback, and I'll just reference it because it was my last experience here, and I think your last experience before you was good or different states. And there was a fair amount of back and forth over a period of about a year and a half or more on that project. And although there was not a wholesale redesign of the project, there were certainly many different changes that occurred. And that included with respect to layout of the project site. I think that there was a reorientation and maybe even a change in the number of lots on the residential side of that project, the single family home side. And so that's not uncommon in the 40B context.
Okay.
So we're always happy to take feedback and we're always happy to have dialogue. But you know, there are constraints. There's also cost constraints because of the project this size. But please, any sort of feedback we'd be happy to consider. You know, we believe that this design is correct and appropriate for the site, but we're happy to take feedback.
I mean, I look at the site, I know the site, I know it was there. I used to live on Centerbridge Road for 20+ years. And I look at that big unit on the corner and I just, safety wise, to me, it just seems like it's gonna be an eyesore sticking out. It's gonna block Neck Road, Centerbridge Road. And if there was some way to take that large barn building and move it to where the two-family is, going across that parking area and put the two-family in the front, that's a lower building, less obtrusive, you know, better clearance. To me, it might fit better, but that's just, you know. It'd be interesting to see what the traffic study says and everything, because I don't see how you could have that so close to the road there on that corner and not be obstructing views. No, knowing that area. You know how the rest of the board feels in the front, you know the area as well as me, you know?
I mean, it's a thought. When I look at it, you just, this is the first time you mentioned it.
Yeah. I think you're putting a lot of buildings on a little piece of land, and if you're looking at 11 and not looking at reducing the 11, that was a two-family for 90 years, 80 years, however long, you know, it was in existence, and to take a 2 and make 11 out of it on less than a half an acre of land, I think it's just, it's crunch, it's. And if there's some way to make it not so blaring at you coming up Centerbridge and whoa, you know, what is this 34-foot high big barn on the corner that you can't see Neck Road, you can't see kids on their bicycles coming down with the sidewalks and
Just so hard to picture what they'll do. I have in my travels seen a very similar project to this one, very similar location, roads crossing and whatever. And there was a lot of buildings on the site. It worked and it's almost identical to this.
Really?
I should have taken some pictures when I was there. But
yeah.
very similar type project to this one.
I mean, Neck Road is just, it's narrow, it's, you know, you got your fork, you got your perk, you got.
Yeah.
If I could add, I know that corner clearance is something that we requested a waiver for previously. We did tweak the layout a little bit to push it out, so we're not asking for that waiver. And obviously that tails into like site distance for intersections.
It is 25 feet. And
Yeah, that's right. The one thing that's deceiving about the plans is that our property line ends
Right.
at a certain point, but then there's another additional, correct me if I'm wrong, 25 feet.
It's
to
25
Neck
feet.
Road. Yeah, so the setback is really about 36.1 feet from Neck Road.
Correct, yep.
And you said the peer review said the sidewalk is on the private property, that's not actually on the town land or something, sounds like.
No, the sidewalk along, Center Bridge Road is actually on private.
Yeah, that's what I saw, I mean, you can see it in the drawings, it's just kind of, not interesting, I guess, because the sidewalk's all within 100 years.
Just so the picture of it. Like the road, put it's like wall up and say, okay, this is what it looks like from the
Yeah.
road where you're turning. But they agree with you. Keeping out of the-
Yeah, I don't know, I just.
I think it's either, again, the two family space in that road and then.
Mhm.
We talked a little bit last time about trash and trash pickup too, and I'm not seeing dumpster locations or anything, it's all parking lot, or all parking spaces. Giving consideration of waste receptacles and where those are going.
David, you guys, you're probably doing, individually, you're separate on those, and there's a private pickup.
Yeah, we have private.
Yeah, so. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so part of what the applicant's saying is, there'll be no dumpster on site, it'll be individual, each unit has trash recycle. And then coordinate private pickup, on whatever day, works for both parties.
22 receptacles.
Well, I'm thinking the same
Still worked
thing.
on property?
We can look at it.
Yeah, I would say, where's space, fine if they're individual, but where's space for.
Yeah, because they don't all have garages, right?
No.
Yeah,
no,
so-
there's no garage.
Yeah.
We can look at that and get back, so.
Yeah.
And I'm working on it.
That'd be pretty much what you guys area.
Well, one for trash, one for
Recyclable,
recycling per
Yeah.
unit.
those big green barrels.
So, good number.
Yeah.
Storage standpoint too, in the sanitary standpoint. With this all of the stored. I think you two wanted to get everyone's input. We started to talk through the waiver, not in terms of details, but starting to figure out who else we should be getting opinions from, because again, we are acting across.
Like-
for all the-
Yeah,
So,
go ahead.
so I think we as a board start to look at that, obviously, I just wanna have some public comment tonight as well.
Yeah,
But start to look through that waiver list and then we can direct Brian where we will be looking for input, like productive input, not just.
yeah, I think Adam talked about the waivers and stuff too in his letter, so I'd kind of like to hear from Adam and what he thinks our process,
What should.
yeah, where do we go, where do we start, where do we end, what do we view?
Yeah.
I'll just stand at the podium so I don't hold my back to the whole room. So I see you have my memo, I presume all board members have a copy.
Yeah.
I apologize, I got it to you yesterday, so you didn't have much time to review it, but, and I have a copy for council. It's just the standard review that I've done, for other projects, more focused on completeness of the application. I generally confirm that the application is complete. There were a couple things that might be supplemented, although after hearing what I've heard tonight, it sounds like maybe they haven't supplemented things like the architectural plans, for example. And then I address other components, for example, the waiver list, as was just referenced.
Yeah.
And to your point, Mr. Chair, and I think it's relevant not only to your dealings with other boards and commissions and committees in the town of Lancaster, but it's also relevant to your communications with your consultant. So some of the issues that were just raised, concern about the density of the project, whether there's too much on the site or whether there's sufficient space for this number of units, together with things like adequate parking and circulation, snow storage and trash receptacles. The proximity of the buildings to the roadway, whether that presents concerns from a traffic safety perspective or pedestrian safety, bicycle traffic, site distances, things of that sort. If you have these types of questions, I think it's important that you make your consultants aware. It's not a one-way street where you hire a consultant, you wait for their report, and then you get what you get, and that's it. You can make them aware, even as they're preparing their peer review of whatever is submitted by the applicant, that you have these specific concerns and you'd like them addressed in whatever they prepare, so they're ready to address them. Because public health, public safety concerns are legitimate grounds for either conditioning or denying a Chapter 40B development. And you know from past experience, I'm the last one to stand here and advise you at the outset to deny a Chapter 40B development. We all know the difficult standard with Chapter 40Bs and what it means when you deny. But you need to do your due diligence and review the project. And if you have concerns that your consultants should answer, can answer, get those questions to your consultants early on in the process. And similarly with other boards and commissions and committees, because you're in this unique position under 40B that you're not in when you're acting on variance applications or special permit applications, where you not only have to act under the zoning bylaw as a ZBA, you also have to act to apply the provisions of the wetlands bylaw, to apply the provisions of local board of health regulations, to potentially act on behalf of the water, you have a sewer district and a water commission, right?
Yeah.
Because you're being asked to do all those sorts of things, and again, we touched upon a lot of this in the context of Greater Worker Estates, which is a larger project and had a lot of complications, but because you're being asked to wear so many different multiple hats that you're not used to, you need to solicit feedback from those other boards and commissions and committees. It's a requirement of Chapter 40B, and I presume it's been done, that they all receive notice of the application. They all are told that they have 30 days to provide their feedback. Some of them don't. I mean, maybe they haven't met, maybe they're not meeting frequently, maybe they don't understand the complexity of the project, or that you need assistance and you need some hand-holding because this is outside of your expertise. So the follow-ups, you have the benefit of having staff to assist you, follow-ups with the Concom and the Board of Health in particular, but also with water and sewer, just to get some feedback from them on not just the waivers, but the very project itself. I think will help you make decisions as this process unfolds on the project and of course on the waivers. We will address at the appropriate time, and it sounds like maybe you started the conversation. I wasn't here for the opening session of the public hearing, but when it comes to water and sewer, it's tricky because even in the context of an independent district, you still have a certain obligation, and I'm careful with my wording here, certain obligation to act on their behalf with respect to, for example, issuing a permit for a connection. However, because in the case of sewer, for example, there is this administrative consent order that's contractual in nature that governs when they can allow connections based upon capacity, it's not, you don't have the authority to interfere with those contractual relations. And so there needs to be a cooperative process where, while you're recognizing what you do have to do on behalf of the district and you're communicating that to them, the applicants also, and it sounds like this is already occurring, in communication with the district to get feedback and confirm that the capacity is available, or they can make that capacity available to accommodate the project. And again, this isn't as large of a project as some others. We're talking about 11 units, but still, it's 11 units, and if there's no capacity available, unless there's I&I or other things done to create that capacity, that's something that should be determined through this process, so that if your board sees fit to grant the permit, we can condition it appropriately.
But we can't go through the permit unless we know for sure that the sewer commission is going to give them the capacity for 11 units, correct? That's kind of number one. If the sewer commission isn't going to grant them it, then there's no sense in us going anywhere because they can't get it for 11 units, correct?
So fortunately, we didn't have to answer that question with the states, but we came awfully close to it. The way that you might remember, in fact, I looked at that decision again before tonight, knowing that this would be raised. The way that we structured it there, the condition was about a page long, is the zoning board of appeals granted a connection permit subject to a series of conditions that needed to be satisfied in order to make that connection feasible. And then the second part of the condition said that notwithstanding its granting of a connection permit, that permit would only be granted and was only being granted to the extent that capacity existed. And with respect to capacity, we deferred to the district. We said the applicant has to go to the district and create the capacity. If they can't create it, then the connection permit you're granting is null and void. It means nothing, they can't build their project. If they can go and they can work things out and they can create that capacity, well, then you've effectively issued the connection permit. So I would think we'd probably address it the same way here, unless circumstances have changed and that's communicated to us by the district.
Yeah, the district was at our original meeting and they invited them to go and speak with them and they thought they could come up with something for you with I or something.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
still working it through, I guess, Mass DEP is working for them to see how they formulate the capacity and they're doing studies again. So that's sort of a working process, and I agree with council that I know that condition in Goodrich Estate, and I think it's a good condition, and I think we would accept a similar condition. Yeah.
So I don't think I had much else in my letter. I mean, I included my typical warning that you shouldn't be granting what's often referred to as blanket waivers. To a lot of projects that's on the plans, you want to know exactly what you're granting in the form of a waiver. I did see, and of course I hadn't seen it before tonight, but I see it in the responses by Hancock Associates to the peer review comments. I see that several of these waivers, specifically the waivers that were requested from the stormwater rules and regulations and the wetlands protection bylaw rules and regulations, have essentially, I don't want to say they've been rescinded, but they've been clarified. The state that the waiver was only requested for procedural purposes, essentially saying we're asking this board to waive the requirement that we go and we get a stormwater permit from planning, or that we get a wetlands permit or an order of conditions under the local bylaw from the Conservation Commission. I would argue that they don't need to seek those waivers because state law says that you act instead of those other boards and commissions, whether you want to or not. And so I would say that you're obligated to grant the waivers, because even if you didn't, state law effectively puts you into the shoes of those other public bodies anyway. But it doesn't appear that they're seeking substantive waivers from either of those bylaws or rules and regulations in terms of the actual standards. So that makes it simpler than some other projects where we've had to delve into the specifics of no disturb zones, no build zones and things of that sort under wetlands protection, and similarly some of the complications of sewer or septic.
Okay.
Does the board have other questions for me?
Yeah, I think chair of the water district, I give her an opportunity right here just to speak to. Thank you, Ed. Sure. Ralph Gifford, I'm a member of the Lancaster Sewer District, not Chair. Jonathan Gulliver is chair. But we had agreed that I would attend this meeting tonight in case there were any questions about sewer capacity. We have been, we thought, right on the edge of about zero as far as our sewer bank credits. It appears that we may be significantly negative on our sewer bank credits. We're in the process of trying to run this to ground and figure out exactly where things are at. We'll be meeting with our engineer in March to try to move forward and get some of the issues resolved that are outstanding. If we are able to resolve those issues satisfactorily, we'll come back up to zero. As I say, right now, we are in a negative position by probably at least 2,000 units. So the situation has actually gotten worse over fairly recently. Now, longer term, we will be doing an infiltration and inflow study, an I&I study, starting in March. That we expect to be completed by some point in November. So it'll take several months to complete this study. At that point, we should know where we can do work to reduce I&I and have more credits available. Given that it won't be completed until November, I would expect that the soonest that any I and I work would commence would probably be in 2025. We'll have to go through a process, a procedure, to get proper credit. Where we have to actually measure I and I before, document it before, which we will do by our study. And then document after the fact that it has in fact been reduced. So by the time all of that is completed, I think we could very easily be looking at the middle of 2025 before we would have credit sufficient for this project.
Pending you get back to zero.
Yes.
Do you suspect that there is I in Lancaster? Because I know for the past 40 years, they've always said we have no leaks in
Right.
Lancaster. We have them in Clinton, but we don't have them in Lancaster.
So we long believed we had very low I and I.
Yep.
As a result of a recent review, we discovered that the flow rate at which we were being billed was 45% higher than the rate that we are billing at. We bill based on water that comes, the fresh water coming into the houses or the properties. MWRA bills us on a meter that they run there. And so with 45% higher, that's a big number.
Significant number.
That's a significant number. So we are in the process of trying to figure out where on earth is this coming from? Now, we now have charts that we have obtained fairly recently that shows every time there's a rainstorm, the inflow into the plant goes up sharply. So it could be, we in fact do have significant I and I inside of Lancaster. We won't know that until we complete this study. It's also a possibility that what's happening is that there are connections from Clinton coming into the Lancaster sewer pipe. And that's one of the things we're trying to get a handle on. We will certainly have a handle on that as a result of this I and I study, which will commence next month, finish in November. We're trying to see if we can come up with a alternate way to begin to find other connections coming in from Clinton. I coincidentally just tried to find the sewer line behind Woodruff Plaza just on Tuesday, yesterday. I was out walking in the woods out behind Shaw's and taking my chances with the tick infestation and all that kind of stuff, rolling through the Parker brush. Haven't been able to find it thus far. So we're going back to trying to find the original drawings to figure out where we can find some manholes so we can put some robots down and see if we can look for it. So we're doing everything, we're trying to do everything we can to find out what on earth is the source of this 45% higher rate than we thought we had. So yeah, we have a lot of work ahead of us. We have very strong evidence to believe that there is some significant I and I. We just have no idea at this point whether it's from Lancaster or from Clinton, because of course our pipes do go through Clinton. And we did find documentation going all the way back to 1989 that this was a concern even back then, and a letter was written, and we have not been able to find a response. So it may actually turn out to be a very old, unresolved issue. So I'm having a blast, honestly. I love these kind of things, just dive in and try to, dig and try to find out what's going on and get the problem solved. But I think realistically, we have to be careful to not lead anybody to believe that there might be something available sooner, I would say, than the middle of 2025, realistically.
And that's when work would start commencing on the iron.
That'll depend on the I&I study, finishing up before the end of this year. And then, of course, then it takes a certain amount of time for the work to be done. It takes time just to figure out, for example, if it's not on private property, who's going to pay for it? How do we come up with the money? there's funding issues, there's a lot of stuff that's gonna have to be worked with, that's why I would say 2025 is, middle of 2025 is probably, it might even be an optimistic estimate, but I'm trying to cut it down a little.
Yeah.
From a procedural standpoint, I guess I don't understand, I'm not as well versed in this, right? You identify the iron.
Yes,
At that point, does that then allow you to provide the additional credits to?
yes, okay, great question, I'm glad you asked. So as the attorney mentioned, we have an administrative consent order with DEP. This has been in place for, I think, at least 20 years. And as part of that ACO, for every, we get to add to our sewer bank half of the I&I reduction. So let's say we reduced I&I by 10,000 gallons per day. We would get a credit of 5,000 gallons per day. So part of the situation we're in is that for, until just a few years ago, all of the I&I that had been done in Clinton and by DEP approving and working, and we were getting credits that were being donated by Lancaster developers doing the work there. Where we got into a bit of a awkward situation is we had some I&I, we discovered some I&I, we had it eliminated. It was not done by a developer. And because it was the very first time that I&I had been done in Lancaster, we weren't completely aware of the full DEP requirements. This was some years ago. And so the proper documentation was not followed, and so suddenly where we thought we had almost 5,000 gallons of I&I reduction, as far as DEP is concerned, that was never approved. And if it were approved, we would actually only get credit for about half of that. So that's why we're in the hole in a pretty serious way at the moment. And we're working as hard and as fast as we can to get the whole thing back on track.
So this property was a two-family, so it had sewer capacity for two families.
Yes.
Okay.
I think this is, I'm a little bit gray because it was existing.
Mhm.
I think they still get the credit for that. But certainly the additional, I think they still get the credit. It's new construction, but I think they get the credit because it was pre-existing. The additional 9 units is that's clearly new construction, and we have to have the flow credits.
So with AUC being closed for however many years it's been closed and all those dorms and that, they must have had thousands of gallons of credits. Are those credits secured to those buildings, or are those credits that are freed up that somebody can use to do a project like this? Like,
they're not freed up to my knowledge. This is actually one of the questions that we want to discuss and try to get a resolution on. But to my knowledge, they are connected with the property. I don't know, so I best stick there.
okay.
That's a big number there, with the college being there, then.
Yeah, I mean, they used probably thousands of gallons, so if.
That's the value of the property, though. Yeah, they want to use it. Yeah, I know they're trying to essentially restart for educational purposes, so I'm quite certain that they would not want to lose those credits.
So really.
Just for the record, when we submitted the filed an application, it wasn't negative credits. It was, we were at maybe not 11, but there was maybe 6 or 8 or something like that. And we were talking about, we just needed a couple more credits, and I&I removal seemed the way to go. So the goalposts have sort of changed on us, have moved on us after we filed our application. So this is something that, I'm sure will be a continued conversation.
And because you're in the sewer district, you can't put a septic in because there's sewer in the street, correct?
I believe that's correct.
I believe that's the way it works.
Yeah, and he is correct. We only recently realized that we had some issues with the sewer bank, and that's part of what we're trying to get resolved.
I just thank God AUC is closed, because if they were open and you're 45%,
You were 45,000
oh
over.
my gosh, you'd be in deep trouble.
That's not just a running toilet. That's
Yeah, boy.
Somebody left the sink on before they.
All the toilets in AUC have to be running right now.
Yeah, and they're also not on the envelope measurement either. We both go off what they were going. You know what I mean? So he's measuring the water going in.
Yeah.
There's no one going in. Right. So the 45% would still be about where it's at. Yeah. Even if they're within. Hope that was helpful. Any other
Very,
questions?
very
Yeah, there was
helpful.
enlightening there.
Yep. No, thank you.
Can I just add something?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think that was helpful for context.
Yeah.
But I just want to remind the board that while the dialogue can continue, and I would certainly encourage the applicant to continue the dialogue,
Yeah.
it's not really a dialogue in which this board needs to be especially involved, right? I mean, the reality here is that there's an ACO, I just reviewed it because I knew I had it from the last project and it had been a few years since I read it. I mean, it's fairly explicit. The district shall not allow any new connections to or extensions of its sewer system. And there are 4 exceptions. Connections of existing premises where the Board of Health certifies to the department that the sewer connection is necessary to abate an imminent health hazard. That's not this. Changes in use at existing premises already connected to the sewer system that do not result in any increase in wastewater design flow or contaminant loading. So that's the two-family example, right? Sewer extensions and connections already authorized by valid permit as of the date of the administrative consent order 2 decades ago. That's not this either. And then sewer connections authorized by the department pursuant to the terms of the sewer bank. And that's what we've been talking about, the sewer bank, and the fact that we think we're negative. So the reality here is you got a lot on your shoulders as a ZBA acting under chapter 40B. You're gonna have to consider traffic and civil engineering and stormwater. The good news is the one thing you don't need to consider
It's sewer
is
because it's.
sewer, because it is what it is, and we can't do anything about it. We can't alter the terms of the ACO.
Right.
That doesn't fall in your laps as a ZBA because it's not a local permit or approval.
But our decision would be written in a way that they couldn't do anything until they go.
Right, you can issue the connection permit based upon the technicalities of whether it's been designed appropriately. But in terms of the actual capacity to then utilize the connection or make the connection, that's between the applicant and the sewer district and the DEP and the ACO.
Okay.
That's a big
All
help.
right, yeah, that helps.
One less thing on our shoulder.
Yeah, we gotta use the methodology we use for.
Yep.
So I guess what I would like to see from Hancock, if they could, is give us a list of the actual waivers that you are looking for. Okay,
Yeah.
like just a sheet of paper with all the waivers.
So that means you, I think that just came through this afternoon.
Just, oh,
That's the.
oh, I don't have that.
We're gonna
Okay.
take a look at it, one more time, because I think we updated it once after the hearing, and then, we need to update it again, based on peer review comments, and, we're happy to keep updating that document, so we will provide another update before the next hearing.
So if we can get a copy of that.
And that was today.
And this just came today as part of
All
the
right.
package, I think, from Hancock that we just got late this afternoon.
Okay.
So
All right.
that was in the Dropbox
Oh,
that got to us this afternoon.
it wasn't in my Dropbox.
Well, I sent you the link, it had 4 or 5, I think 4 documents in there, and it was included in.
The waiver list is on the title sheet of the plan set. It's about mid-page at the bottom. It's kind of like a, an 8.5 letter.
So you're saying in this?
Yeah. I don't mind if
All
I.
right, come on and show me.
Yeah, so just flip back to right here.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I know.
Please.
Sorry.
Gonna have to-
Here, if it helps,
Gonna just splice with magnifying glasses. No.
I know that helps a
That
little,
doesn't
but
even help.
yeah. Next time I'll bring a full-size one.
Thank you.
Take your camera on your phone and.
Rob.
Just wait. Just wait.
That's why I'm on the computer, to zoom in
It's
and out.
letter here, and the cover letter to the, stormwater, the peer review response letter. They go through, at the end of that, we talk about the waivers.
This,
No, the one that,
found one.
221. So there's. This.
Right.
This,
Yes.
yeah, What?
It was-
Yeah, this is-
General waivers too, and it's June.
So I just talked about the ones that are.
right, I just wanna see a list of all the, yeah,
Clean sheet.
clean sheet of everything they're asking for.
Sure.
Okay, and then somebody said that you guys have, you've agreed to who the traffic study's gonna be? Who's that?
Correct, yeah, Bob Newshad, from MDM Transportation. And, the town for peer review has hired Jeff Dirk, I believe, from Vanessa.
Yes, yeah.
Vanessa.
That'll be ready for the two best traffic engineers in the state.
Yeah, they are, Vanessa. Okay. What else do we need?
Homecoming. When the bubble going will be the only. Do we want, I guess. Maybe it's, I wanna just make sure we're progressing and getting the information that we need. Staff, when with the consultants,
Mhm.
what we need from the applicant to help us. I think, the lighting piece was one.
Yeah,
I like the fence. I think we all seem to be on the same page with the fence. It would be good to see the combined drawings of the plantings along with the fence.
Are we okay with eliminating some of the plantings along the fence? They were substantial.
Before, it was,
Right.
I'm okay, you're gonna have, I'd be okay with it myself. I'd wanna still see plantings along.
I do.
100%.
No, I don't just wanna see that many,
I don't wanna see that many.
just for snow storage.
Snow removal is gonna become
Yeah.
a problem in storage.
Yeah.
So
We can propose something.
Yeah.
I got you.
Kind of strategically put them so they fly. They can be moved.
Adam, can you think of anything else that we should be asking for at this point?
No, I mean, I think as I alluded to before, since it sounds like the next step and possibly the next meeting, I don't know what the turnaround time is for, I presume that Bob Michaud's completed his traffic analysis. Or
I'm
not
not
yet.
sure, but, I think we can plan on having traffic in that.
So if Bob's gonna be done and then Jeff has performed his peer review, I think it's wise in the next 30 days and maybe in the next 7 to 10 days, that to the extent board members have questions that relate to traffic or pedestrian safety, that those be presented to the peer reviewers. So he's keeping an eye out for that as he conducts the review in a couple of weeks in anticipation of your next meeting. Again, getting that information to the consultant in a timely manner. And then you've got to decide as you get beyond traffic, are there other topics? So you've done civil engineering, you're going to do traffic. Those are typically the big two with most 40B developments. But there are various other topics that arise from time to time, depending upon the complexities of a project. And I'm not saying this is necessarily even a complex project. That's up to you. Doesn't sound as if there are going to be many wetlands issues here because.
There was something about it 200 feet from a stream or something?
From the river, right? There's a 200-foot setback, but it appears that they're outside of the setback.
Are they outside of that?
Yeah.
They are, okay.
Yeah, so the stream showed up on GIS, it's not named or anything, but I think it also, the reviewer pointed out, if you scale off of GIS, the 200 feet doesn't hit our property, so.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
What's that?
Do you mind if I ask a question?
Oh, yeah.
So, there are floodplains, around with I'm just wondering how much above. What is the nearest monument or where you were measuring the elevation of the development? How much higher, what's the delta between that and the floodplain?
You're not within the 100 foot.
No,
Yeah, the other end is center. Yeah, the other end is center.
We are from the highest,
Yeah.
from the 100-year floodplain.
Yeah.
It kind of surrounds it.
Right, yeah.
I'm just curious as to what that, if you knew what that delta was.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I just saw that we weren't within the 100 foot floodplain, so, that's something I can look at if there's a base elevation, assigned to the floodway. But yeah, it'll all be on the FEMA map,
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
So from the point where concerns are gonna be less about snow storage than rising floodplains, you know?
Yeah,
But
Trash.
it's not.
that might be an island because it floods around everywhere around, yeah,
If you
yeah.
look at the GIS,
Well, Just go out after a rainstorm and it'll be an island, you know, yeah.
The only other, I just wonder, we talk about pervious pavement, there's a lot of your, a stormwater conveyance is gonna include forest pavement recharge. You know, that's great, but it's high maintenance. So it's going to be, I mean, and you talk about here, shall occur, annual inspection shall occur with a representative from town engineer. We don't have a town engineer per se, we may have one who knows, we don't even have a DPW.
Superintendent.
Department head at this point. But, you know, that's putting an onus on the town for that, so. You know, porous concrete gets clogged up, right, with sand. I know there's gonna be restrictions, you're mentioning that maybe in your operational maintenance, there's gonna be restrictions on salt and sand in the winter. But it does tend to, it is high maintenance. So in terms of a stormwater conveyance, how reliable is it?
We've installed it before and with proper maintenance and upkeep, it does hold up. And that includes, you know, street cleaning, the restriction of sand and salt, for de-icing materials. As well as there's actually vacuum trucks that are able to withdraw sediment from the pavement that might be clogging in with, prohibiting water and flow through there.
Okay, so I mean, but this is going to involve like the HOA or, documents or something, right? I mean, that maintenance is really gonna be key.
Yes, and I understand that, you know, you might not have a town engineer or, you know, with someone to inspect it. We can formulate that however you guys would like. If, you know, typically we'll have a stipulation where the owner or the owner's management company submits maintenance logs, yearly, that maintenance is being done. We can forward that to, you know, the building department, whomever.
That could become a condition of the decision.
Right. And then Jim, this is more clarification, on your stormwater report, standard one, you mentioned there's not gonna be any new stormwater conveyances. But I'm a little confused, but you're showing a proposed underground drain. Is that not a stormwater conveyance?
The way I see it is that stormwater on site is flowing overland to those catch basins anyways.
Yeah.
So us connecting a pipe into that municipal system, I don't view that as a new conveyance. Certainly, I don't think that the velocity in that pipe would trigger any sort of erosion or impact the public infrastructure. I will highlight that in the calculations.
Okay, cool.
The overflow is only in the 100-year storm,
Mm-hmm.
which is, you know, over 8 inches of rain in a 24-hour period. So there is significant storage on site that we're mitigating on site. And the only storm where we're actually discharging is with
100. Okay, thank you.
I agree with that. That there's gonna be conveyances.
Okay.
This, through you, Mr. Chair, this topic of stormwater management and compliance with an O&M plan arises not just in 40Bs, but with site plan reviews often by planning boards. And we can address it different ways through conditions. I don't recall how far we went with the Root Estates. I mean, certainly we have the standard provisions that required submittal of an O&M plan, compliance with an O&M plan. We got the language that states that any ensuing condominium or homeowners association will be responsible. But you can go a few steps further. You can require that, you make mention of a town engineer, and you don't have one, you can require the applicant to place funds in escrows, you can engage a third-party engineer to conduct reviews, at least, early on in the development, before, when the development is underway and before it's completed. You can require or negotiate with the applicant rights of entry, so that you have a right of entry to inspect in the event that you believe that the system is not functioning. You can provide or require the applicant to provide a form of surety to ensure that in the event that it's not functioning, the town has the funds available. It all depends upon the complexity of the system, what sort of maintenance is required, the cost of that regular maintenance, what's the frequency of that maintenance. And I don't know enough. We have to rely upon the experts to tell us, to give us the answers to those questions, but there are ways that we can structure conditions to provide the town with some assurances, and probably in a manner that I think would be acceptable to the applicant, because it's not uncommon, but we just have to find a way that it's not overly burdensome for the applicant or for the applicant's successor, the owners of these units, but that also provide some guarantee for the town that if things go south, that there's going to be some remedy available.
So get to the point around with the traffic study. We could talk about that now in terms of things that we want the consultant to be looking at. Or, again, if you want to think on it in the next week, individually email those to Brian and then do that, bring that to the consultant. So I'm fine with either one.
I think you've heard from me tonight. What my concerns are with safety and traffic, and
Right.
if I come up with any others, I'll get them to you.
And I would respectfully request that communication be sent to us. So that
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, absolutely.
That
Yeah.
our peer review can do that as well.
Mhm.
Sure.
Our engineer will do that.
So you think for the next meeting, for sure, the traffic?
I think traffic, that makes sense, subject to change for some reason,
Yeah.
if my traffic engineer is not ready, we'll come up with another subject
Okay.
and talk to Brian and Adam
Okay.
about that, but I would suspect traffic will be the next subject.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have a traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah, Vanessa's already starting. There was something.
Okay. Then if you can do some sort of lighting plan too.
Yep.
that'd be
So
good.
I got trees, snow
Yeah.
removal,
Yeah,
issued the lighting plan and a trash dumpster.
Yep.
Oh, and that's my three there.
I'll open it up for, I want to try and keep these to like 9 o'clock if it's later. They haven't been home since 5:30. So I'll open up to the public, couple of ground rules. Like I said, this is the last meeting. We'll keep it to a timer, 3 minutes, for each speaker. Direct anything towards the chair, in this circumstance. I'll start within the room and then I'll move online. So,
make sure they say their name.
oh yes, thank you. State your name and address. So I'll first turn it to folks in the room here for any public comment.
Hey, doing, I'm Sam Malatis. I'm at 24 Neck Road, so right across the street. Sam Malatis. I guess, one question I had, and I don't really know the typical protocol, and I think a lot of the information kind of comes in, right before the meeting, but just whether or not any of the reports or that sort of thing could be shared or uploaded prior to the meeting, just so that, any of the residents actually have an ability to comment on things or be productive in the meeting, would be helpful. So, and I know like if stuff comes in the day before, that's obviously kind of hard to get it loaded, but, to the extent that can be done, I think it'd be helpful for the conversation to have that available. Yeah.
Brian is working.
So I know.
Figure that piece out. There was a change. We used to be able to put those Dropbox links up to get it to everybody. There was a change in terms of us going to Microsoft 365 or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's causing some heartache. So we've got a definitely area.
A meeting materials link that's on each board's website. I'm trying to get a solution there, so those meeting materials can made publicly available sooner or later.
Yeah, and then even like this project has its own tab, I could tell, under under the board's page or something like that, so it's there and wherever there's one holding where everything is. You know, I guess the only thing I'll comment on, which we've been talking about is the change, I guess, to doing the, you know, the white vinyl fence. You know, obviously aesthetically kind of pitched initially, you know, keeping with the, you know, the country setting and be natural plantings and, you know, it's nice in the renderings and obviously that's kind of getting thrown out once, you know, the first comment got back that, you know, there's nowhere to put snow. So it still seems like at 6 to 8 feet, that's kind of a small area to be dumping snow. You know, so obviously you put a vinyl fence, that's gonna be your snow retaining wall. I can't imagine a vinyl fence acting as a snow retaining wall very efficiently for very long. So, you know, maybe the first winter keeps the snow off of the Schmidt's property or, you know, the other property on the other side. But you know, that thing will be a disaster, you know, within a year. You know, and the whole white vinyl fence isn't enough of an eyesore for the existing, you know, setting that it's in and, you know, be even more so once it's kind of, destroyed. You know, I think, there was one comment, I can see that point that, you know, because it's dual way traffic, it probably helps eliminate the lights in people's homes. And that may be for some of the properties. I happen to live in the property that'll be directly across from the exit on Neck Road. I think I'd mentioned my concerns a number of times. So, I both the site visit in the first meeting that, you know, to me, it's just, you know, basic decency to not, if you're gonna be putting a parking lot in the middle of a residential neighborhood, to not have the exit facing somebody's home. You know, I think, the project doesn't really fit on the lot as it is, so to say there's not a way to kind of turn that exit and have it, you know, facing, you know, kind of the square there or out towards the, you know, the triangulation of roads and not necessarily right at somebody's house, I think you'd think it would be doable where it could kind of loop out and, you know, put your plantings there to kind of break the lights on a turn back out from that road or something like that, but, you know, like I said, I just, you know, you look at it in general, and nobody's gonna say, yeah, this thing fits like a glove. Yeah, I could see that there's, you know, a way to make that a little bit more, palatable, you know, for myself and my family. Living there, so just wanted to raise that again, and, you know, hopefully, next time, some of the more concerns about snow removal and, the trash space and all that is kind of addressed a little bit more thoroughly. You know, again, 22 receptacles outside, sounds like a disaster. You know, especially considering this is New England, there's not much room, you know, to put things. They don't really have enough parking for the potential 40 residents that can live there to begin with, so, you know, I think there's a lot of that would be helpful to be addressed in a, you know, a thoughtful manner. But that's all I got for tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room here? All right, if not, I'll go online. If you can raise your hand, we'll recognize you and again, state name and address.
You see hands?
There was one, Geronimo.
Geronimo?
What kind of scam, yeah.
No.
No, maybe a question was answered.
It's just kind of waiting still. Okay.
Okay. Right, nobody online, okay? So at this point, we have a motion to continue.
I'll make a motion that we continue this to, when's our next meeting? March 11th? No,
No. March 28th.
28th.
Right.
Okay, so motion by Gene to continue this
Oh,
to,
wait a minute.
What?
28. Just tentatively do it. I'll check when I get home, that's all.
okay.
I can't miss a meeting.
No, that's right, yeah.
I'm not sure the 28th, so
You didn't miss yours.
I haven't missed anything.
No,
I don't plan on missing any, that's what I'm gonna just verify. I'll be traveling, so I don't wanna I just have to verify that day.
Could join via Zoom from the beach.
Didn't you do that from Aruba or something?
I did that,
one
yeah,
minute?
one
Yeah,
year I had to do it from the beach.
yeah, I remember that.
The motion to continue to the 28th by Gene, you have a second?
I'll second.
All right, second by Dennis.
Same time, 7 o'clock. and
Same time,
7
7
o'clock.
o'clock, yes, everything here.
Yep.
In person, hybrid as a online as a convenience.
Yeah.
Given technical difficulties we have with that, in general. We are here, ready for people.
Yeah.
All right, any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Gene Rich?
Yes,
Craig Sullivan?
Yes.
Dennis Hubbard?
Yes.
Eric Jackubowitz?
Yes.
And Rob Alex, yes. All right, so we continue to March 28th, 2024, 7 p.m. Any other next staff report out here, Brian? Anything from you at all? No.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Gene Rich.
Second that.
Frank Sullivan seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none. Gene Rich.
Yes.
Frank Sullivan.
Yes.
Dennis Hubbard.
Yes.
Eric Jackubowitz.
Yes.
Rob Alex, yes. We are adjourned at 8:49. Thank you, everybody.